Good evening and welcome to Mindful Live 306. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 8th of the 11th in 2023, the 8th of August. Oh, wow. The 8th of November. What am I saying? August is so long gone. The time seems to just be zipping by. It seems to be zipping by. Like you're barely getting a chance. You're barely getting a chance to calculate the months and then they're gone. But yeah, it's November, people. Thank you for joining. Once you're inside, hit that like button, like over there on Instagram, like on TikTok, double tap the screen. Hey, Ronnie Cakes over there on TikTok. I am still waiting for my cake, Ronnie Cakes. Let's not forget my order is still in. Hit that like if you're viewing this on YouTube, on repeat, or even live on YouTube there, especially if you're listening to this on repeat over there on YouTube. Hit the like button, drop a comment, tell me what you think. I see there are lots of you, well, relatively lots of viewers these days looking at the videos on repeat a little delayed, so hit that like button still when you're viewing this. If you are not yet subscribed to Nathan Spring over there on YouTube, yeah, you could hit that subscribe button to Nathan Spring over there. We're at that 960 subscribers mark for a while. Like, let's jump into the thousand subscriber mark by now. So hit that like button. This, as per usual, is brought to you by Mindful Education, the educational institution that I run. We offer personal tutoring, private tutoring for most CXC and CAPE subjects. If you need that one-on-one specialized focused attention in on any subject, make sure to hit us up. We'll send a tutor out there for you. We also offer learning pods, which are small homeschool style classes for learning stages from preschool go all the way up to CXC. Hit us up if you're interested in that. I watched last night's video at work today. Whoa, that police story was crazy. Yes, that police story is indeed crazy. You listen to that and you're like, wow. Stuff you can make a movie out of. And you kind of get this scary feeling like it's not that rare of a story inside of the police. Like, you know, that might be a pretty common story if all is said from inside of the police service. So that makes it even more scary, doesn't it? But we're starting talking tonight about TSTT and their leak. Because they told us one thing about their leak, and then every time we find out something else about the leak, it seems to say, like, you know, TSTT, they're not giving us the whole story. They have zero intention of presenting us with that entire story. Banking and credit card info in TSTT cybersecurity leak. Folks, this is not a drill. Banking and credit card info in TSTT cybersecurity leak. Now, if you were being honest with yourself from the jump, I think you could have kind of guessed. Is it too late for TSTT to pay the hackers? Yes, I think it's already too late. But I think you would have been able to kind of guess that it must have had some kind of something. There must have been some kind of serious data to be released inside of this TSTT information. That story, like the movie with Tyrese Gibson, Black and Blue. Like, if we're thinking this group is a ransomware group, they're looking to take your sensitive information and hold it to ransom, telling you, hey, you have to pay us back, otherwise we're releasing this information. Wouldn't it have been pretty obvious that the information they would have acquired from TSTT would have obviously had to have been some kind of sensitive information? for TSTT to make it seem like, it was, it was just some random names. It was the titles. They found out that you are Mr. or Miss or Mrs. That's the only information they found out. Mr. and Mrs. Yeah, that's all. Nothing serious. But then, if it was anything inconsequential, the ransomware company would not have attempted to get ransom out of it. If they stole just filler data on what your homepage is, it would not have brought any ransom request. The mere fact that there was a ransom request kind of suggested from the jump that some of this may have been true. Despite a denial by the Telecommunications Services of Trinidad and Tobago TSTT, the 6 gigabytes of data uploaded to the dark web after the October 9th breach contains banking and credit card information. Yikes! On November 3rd, TSTT admitted, after first denying it, that 6 gigabytes of its data was leaked after a cyber attack, but said it originated from a legacy system and contained data which was no longer valid. TSTT is trying to get us to believe that this hacker group made a mistake. They hacked an old system that has no valid data, and they somehow were trying to ransom us with invalid data. Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Ronnie Cake says, I wonder if the hackers will sell me my info back. It's really not that valuable, but don't want it out there. Unfortunately, if they got it, it's already out there. It's not like they could sell you it back. They uploaded the whole 6 gigabytes of files. And if you look at the news stories, with every passing day, more and more times those files are being downloaded. At the last check, was that article like 2 days ago, something like that. The number was 15,000 and something downloads of that 6 gigabytes package. There are lots of people already with that information out there. Even if somehow they were to remove it from where they placed it online, more than 15,000 people have already downloaded it. I could check it right now, Jay McKing says. Oh, so you were one of the 15,000 plus downloads, Jay? Someone told me they hacked the hospital, stole patients' data, including results. Imagine they are holding the patient's results hostage. Well, they hacked an RHA. I can't remember which RHA it was, but there was an RHA that was hacked earlier this year. So, yeah, they're hacking everything in sight nearly. TSTT said the data revealed names, email addresses, home addresses, a limited amount of ID scans, some customer account information like billing addresses and mobile numbers, payment receipts, and letters of authorization. The company also said the data dump did not contain call records, transactional data, customers, passwords, credit card information, and financial information. You know, it's just name, numbers, and random hoodoos and dowdats, you know, random nonsense. Nothing to worry about. So watch that. None of the Sabga's info in that 6 gigs. Ronnie Cakes, you're asking questions, attempting to get people in trouble. And chances are very likely for people who know that, you know, their private information. Good night, Max. People who know that their private information is worth more, very likely those people already changed numbers and passwords, etc., etc., etc. It's the small fries who might have to catch. On the first day, if the news saw the PM and former PM info there and was like, yeah, that will be big news later. Well, I mean, if the news purposefully is slow feeding us the story, well, that might happen. But the only reason the news could do that is if TSTT is lying. That's the only reason. If TSTT, on October 9th, when the information was dumped, TSTT released a statement and said, yes, we were hacked. Hackers got into some data. We are worried that XYZ may have been leaked. We're advising all customers to go and check this account, that account, that account, that account. It wouldn't have been a story like that. Could have even been possibly slow released from the media. However, Guardian Media obtained scans with credit card information as well as bank account numbers included in the leaked 7 GB data bundle. Also included among the scans were banking information for customers, companies, state enterprises, ministries, as well as credit card numbers in transaction receipts. And so, someone was asking if there is slow releasing some of this story. But here's the thing, 6 GB of data would take some time to go through. So maybe they have reporters slowly going through the data. And as they find out more, this is what we're finding out here. TSTT must be called them first, like Mr. S. Change everything before the minister and all. That's a possibility. That's a possibility that some people got the call while some people just had to salt. Guardian Media spoke to IT consultant Shivam Tilak Singh, who has been doing a deep dive into the data to see what is available on the dark web. Tilak Singh was able to access his own data, pull up how much of his bill was paid, the form in which it was paid, his address, and his bank account at RBC. Thankfully, he said the bank account was now closed. He pointed out that while TSTT said the information was legacy, there were scans as recent as January 2023. January 2023. At the end of the day, it's not about the hack itself. It's about how the company handled it, brushing it under the rug and hiding it from their customers. Up to now, customers were not notified. A lot of the IDs are older folks as well as international citizens, he pointed out. Also, this was a ransomware hack. That means there's more the hackers have that have not come out yet, Anika Nichols. Well, that's a scary part with it also. Like, if indeed this ransomware attack was as such that the hackers, let's say the hackers acquired 20 GB of data and they told TSTT, pay us or we're going to release it. And TSTT said no. So they released 6 GB and then they messaged TSTT again and say, well, we mean business. We're going to release more data if you don't pay us now. That actually, as Anika Nicole says, is a strong possibility. That's a very strong possibility. If it's ransomware, these guys are about money. Like, the purpose that these guys are doing this isn't to release your information on the dark web for somebody to try and spoof your credit card account or your bank account with negative money in it. That's not why they're doing this. They're doing this to get TSTT to pay them. So who knows? That may make a lot of sense. And if indeed the ransomware group may be releasing part by part data, you may assume that the unreleased data may actually be more sensitive, more important than the data already released. What is the way forward to this chaos? How protected are we? We are not protected. We are pretty much not protected in any way. Because we have no legislation to protect us from this. The way forward for the government is to draft legislation and bring it to the parliament to attempt to ensure that if and when hackers access data, companies must act responsibly at the penalty of law. The reality is TSTT has no negative penalty for the way they are currently behaving. And that's why they can continue to behave that way. There's no negative penalty for them. And the reason there isn't a negative penalty is because the legal framework isn't yet set up. And that's the job and position of the government. That's something the government needs to do. I guess sometimes we have to take the good with the bad in this digital world. Well, we don't really have much of a choice, really and truly. Compliance is not when there is no legal framework. Correct. If I don't have to legally, I by and large won't. That's kind of that's the purpose of regulation. The whole point of regulation inside of capitalist free market systems is to force people to behave more decently for reasons. There are reasons where, no, not reasons, there are instances and decisions that would benefit society, would benefit people, but do not have a bottom line bonus to it. It doesn't increase the bottom line, it doesn't increase profitability of a company. So there isn't a capitalistic free market incentive to do some of these things. So that's the whole purpose that you have a government forming legislation for. And if the government doesn't do legislation for it, then what you're kind of hoping for is to go full anarcho-capitalistic and allow the free market to do a solution. So yesterday I was saying that Digicel is now offering their cybersecurity solutions out there. And what you may tend to find is if this continues in the country, you'd recognize all of a sudden some companies start to offer cybersecurity solutions. I'm nearly 100% certain we'd start to see more and more private free market solutions attempting to come and counter this if the government continues doing what it's doing there. Because, like, even for me, if I could go out there on the internet and investigate enough and find a program, an application that I can lease, that I can borrow, that can offer cybersecurity in the direction that helps Trinidad and Tobago, that might be something very lucrative to sell to businesses in Trinidad. Because as it stands, it seems like we may be a prime target for international hackers. You don't want to be the prime target for bands of international hackers. Mobisan says, waiting to see the region recognize the local cyber threats and where they come from. Government waiting for Amalgamated to come up with cybersecurity. Ronnie Cake says, Ronnie, do you have a problem with that specific business family? Trini Mike says, yup, crime and lack of effective policing created the boom and private security. Exactly. Exactly. The free market would brought a solution to the crime problem. So like something I regularly point out, the Chinese supermarkets in Trinidad and Tobago, Chinese groceries, they were known or reputed to use cash mostly for a long time. And that made them targets. More and more bandits started targeting them. And for some reason, the police service wasn't as protective, or they were unable to stop all of those robberies. And then that caused a boom in the private security business for Chinese groceries. Every Chinese grocery now has an armed security inside of it. A free market solution came about because of this. Maybe that's what we'd have to happen. We'd have to see happen when it comes to cybersecurity. Maybe we'd all have to buy our own VPNs and maskers for our IPs and hide all our data. Trinidad may become a high-tech center for cybersecurity in the private free market because our government refuses to tackle this from the political and legal side. No, I don't have a problem with that family. I want to marry into that family. I'll give great ideas. Good luck, Ronnie. Good luck. Good luck. Go strong. Go strong. They very well might, because a whole letter from Jalabud/Starlight was released as part of the dump. Yikes! Oh my goodness, Anika Nicole. Now, you see that? That's a whole other angle. Because, all right, there's the sensitive information where we're talking banking information, credit card. They could go with your money. They could go with certain secure parts of your life. But if they're talking just private information, a private email sent on what you thought was a secure email, and then it's out a road. And as you said, and as you pointed out there, Anika Nicole, that's not only on the political side that creates risk. Like politicians have their risk of that. But on the private business side, on the relationship side, next thing you see a dark web ransomware leak, mash up somebody, little cheating marriage out there. Imagine that, a data dump, a data leak between some ransomware company and TSTT don't want to pay the ransom, and now all the world know about your honing business. Wouldn't that be something? Yikes. Or who knows what else some people send in emails. The extent of the ramifications of this, we may not even fully know. We may not even fully quite know yet. Yesterday, somebody was telling me about some bacchanal, not yesterday, that wasn't, inside of the UNC, making sure you get all the richness out of whatever you're brewing here. If they are traitors aboard the United National Congress, they will face the same fate as Ravan during this season, said UNC MP Barry Padarat yesterday as he expressed his support for party leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Yep, throw in the religious talk. Morbi-san, I will not have you. I will not have you. I will not have you, Morbi-san. Stop it. Stop it. This follows claims on Ian Allen's Monday show warning Persad-Bissessar of a conspiracy by some opposition members to hijack the UNC. It was claimed a certain man is the ringleader and has been rounding up MPs to get signatures to take to the president to remove Persad-Bissessar's opposition leader, and UNC senators are involved. Persad-Bissessar did not comment on the claims, nor did UNC deputy leaders Rudal Munilal or David Lee. UNC deputy leader Jolene John, meanwhile, said she didn't know any about these things. Some parliamentarians were unavailable, did not reply to Guardian media queries, or said off the record they were loyal to the leader. However, Padarat said, "I'm in full support of Mrs. Persad-Bissessar and her leadership. Thousands of UNC members democratically elected her, and I'm not a part of any conspiracy to undermine her or the party. She continues to have the confidence of myself and my constituents to lead the party successfully into the next general election." And I was talking about this in the nature of politics, especially Nika Nicole. I was talking about the nature of this in the nature of politics in Trinidad and Tobago recently, where politicians, are not beholden to the electorate. They are not beholden to the voters. Because really and truly, when you are placed in Laventille West, the voters of Laventille West are not the people who give you the power of being a member of parliament. It's the PNM screening committee who put you up as MP, as candidate for Laventille West. They are the ones who gave you the power. Same thing in the UNC. If they put you as a candidate for Couva North, the voters of Couva North didn't give you that power. The UNC group who selected you as the candidate gave you that power. So the people or person you are supposed to be loyal to would be the people who gave you the power and position. Those people would be the party machinery. What happened to Silver Fox some years ago? Her turn has come. Well, she was part of the leaders. She led some of the group in what happened to the Silver Fox. So I've been saying this a while now. It seems like UNC is headed in that direction, and it's a sad thing to watch that party do it over and over again. That's a huge negative blot on the party's machinery and succession. You're telling people that this party is incapable of passing power normally from one generation to the next. And okay, you could dislike the PNM, but the PNM hasn't shown that that particular thing is the same level of struggle to them. Is it going to be that every time a UNC leader has to leave, they basically have to be dragged out kicking and screaming? At this point, I believe democracy is an illusion. Yes, it is. To a large extent, it is. And in who you're loyal to, Manning and Rowley were at odds, though. Yes, they were. They were. But Manning held the election, internal election, lost, and left. He wasn't dragged out like Silver Fox. I believe the meeting where Silver Fox was deposed, there was a literal fight down here in Cuba. I'm a Cuba North man. I know some of the inner workings of the faithful back in those days. And it had literal physical confrontation. That's not a good thing for the party. That's not a good thing for the party. It's not a good thing that it seems like it's setting up for the very same thing to happen again. Why must it be that in order for it to pass from one generation to the next, the younger generation literally have to pry it out of your hands? That shouldn't be. Yes, because the leader is in charge of internal elections from the list to counting. Exactly. And that's the problem inside of the UNC that people were lamenting about since the last internal election, since the previous internal election before that. They're saying that the setup of the UNC internal elections is as such that it's basically impossible for an outsider to come in and win. And that may very well be why, in order for them to get rid of Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, they have to do this kind of in the middle of the night maneuvering coup moves here. Because here's the thing. I think what the UNC did post 2009, post 2010 worked really well for cementing their leadership. It worked really well for cementing their leadership. But they did themselves an injustice in getting the best for the party. I don't think it's possible to beat Mrs. Prasad Bisesa in a UNC internal election. The people who vote in internal elections are the party faithful. And Mrs. Prasad Bisesa was sold extremely well to the party faithful post 2010. Mother Kamla has a deity position in some people's mind. And I don't think you're going to vote her out in internal elections. And that's sad. It's like, I don't think anyone can beat Kamla in an internal UNC election. And I don't think Mrs. Prasad Bisesa will beat anyone in a national election. And that puts UNC in a very sad and cornered position. The person who is dragging you down nationally, you cannot get rid of them internally. And I don't even mean this as an insult to Mrs. Prasad Bisesa. I'm just saying this as looking at the politics as they are. That's what I'm saying this as, not an insult to Mrs. Prasad Bisesa directly. Like, Dr. Rowley, he said a while ago that he wasn't running again. This was his last term and la-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But I've been hearing more and more, it seems like he is going to run again. He's talking like he is going to run again. And I think part of the reason that he could have that feeling and confidence that he's going to run again is because he's looking over opposite. And he sees, well, it's the same person. So I have no need to move. Agreed, maybe they're hoping she announces a successor. I would be hoping so too. But I don't see that Mrs. Prasad Bisesa was even grooming successors. Like, who do you think, or when you look at the politics in Trinidad and Tobago, is there someone you see that it even looks like Mrs. Prasad Bisesa is grooming or the UNC is grooming? Who? Who is that person? Like, I remember 2010. I remember 2010. I've been talking politics and online for a while, and I remember back then there was a very strong UNC youth arm. A very strong UNC youth arm. They were most online, very present, debating. I'm not talking just the nasty politics of throwing racial slurs and all of that kind of thing that you see online. I'm talking genuine political debate. There was a very vibrant UNC youth arm. Where did all those people go? Lol, Ronnie. And the name you call there, Ronnie, I don't see that person winning. I don't see that person winning. That person, I saw them attempt elections, for example. They were constantly a candidate back in my UE days. And I don't think they ever even came close to winning once. That person hasn't shown themselves necessarily as a powerful political candidate, you know. And to me, this is my opinion looking at the politics here. It nearly seems like Mrs. Prasad Bisesa cut down anyone who showed that they may have had individual sway. It could seem like that to me. Some names of some people who looked like they had individual sway, she cut them down. And now the right-hand man, one of the top talkers, was literally her bag man. The guy you were talking about there, Ronnie Cakes. The guy who spoke about his loyalty, and anyone who's betraying Mrs. Prasad Bisesa would be like Rawan at the end of this. That guy was literally her purse carrier. I don't mean that as an insult or offense. But that's what he was. And he is not, let's be clear about this. Like, I don't want to get any more controversial, but we all know in this live, in this chat, we all know he is not going to win a national election. We know this. The fact that he won a member of parliament candidacy in Trinidad and Tobago, in Trinidad and Tobago, in South Trinidad and Tobago, where maybe more socially conservative than general Trinidad and Tobago, tells you a lot about the nature of partisan politics in Trinidad. You could put a frog in the constituency, and once they wear the right flag or the right symbol, don't worry, they're getting voted for. But yeah, who is there for the UNC? Ram Logan was a candidate. I have no doubt about Mr. Ram Logan's intelligence, about his ability to plan. There's no doubt about that. I am a little scared of him, if we're being honest. If we're being honest, I'm a little scared of him. I'm a little frightened of the man. But for the part of UNC, he wasn't an option. It's not like they got rid of him per se. He wasn't an option. He was more forced out because of legal situations. It's not like they got rid of him. He wasn't a viable option. Mr. Munilal, who has been there for a long time and shows himself, seeming to have some of that ambition. I once read an article, I think it was from the recently deceased BC Perez, and they referred to Mr. Munilal as being as palatable as broken glass. That statement always stuck with me. And I don't think Mr. Munilal has much national appeal. I said this before, probably since last year. If from the general UNC old guard, you're looking for national appeal, I think Vasant Bharat was that. From the old guard, I think he was that national appeal. I don't see many more people in the UNC old guard that would have had the same kind of national appeal. But where he gone, he ain't gone anywhere, but he's never going to depose Mrs. Prasad Bisesa from that seat. And they did a very effective job at making him a toxic leader for the internal UNC elections. It would be very, 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 very difficult. It would be very difficult for him to win any internal elections now inside of the UNC. The knife and fork Indian kind of talk that they threw at him, that he's the bougie Indian. He doesn't understand the plight of the Karani worker, and that talk has sway still among the UNC core. So it swayed people against him, and it's much more difficult. If you could put aside the dog rice scandal, I don't think in Trinidad that would have carried any weight against him. Like, they would have thrown that at him, but dog rice not really going to stop you from winning an election in Trinidad and Tobago. Everybody have their scandals that you could throw at them. I don't think that scandal was big enough and sexy enough to be something to bring down somebody. It's rice. I don't know, I'm playing catch up. Was away for 33 years, don't have a clue. Yeah, the real frig him up because he not poor, well, not a rep of the poor man. Yeah. And I mean, none of the higher ups in the party are poor anyway, so what? The joke with that is Kamala was an NAR, how much more bougie. Yep. But I mean, you make the narrative. It doesn't matter. You could make the narrative whatever you want it to be. It's like in the US, Donald Trump is the representative of the average normal man. Donald paint his buildings gold Trump. I mean, you make your narrative and sell it. If there are those who aspire to leadership but take the coward's route by undermining the party for personal and selfish reasons, the membership will deal with those pathetic cowards in due course. If there are traitors aboard, they too will face the same fate as Rawan during this season. There are those of us who are known fighters against PNM oppression in this party alongside Mrs. Prasad Bisesa. We won't be hijacked by any PNM infiltrators or Johnny come lately. Mr. Ruston Parry said there's one leader of the party. Oh gosh, that one leader song like you all know the gang talk. One king. One king. The song like the Rapping Sevens. The song like the Rapping Sevens there. There's only one leader. Mr. Ruston Parry said, there's only one leader of the party with a functioning national executive. The UNC's constitution provides for internal elections when it's due. The work of all MPs and councillors is to remove the PNM and focus on matters of water infrastructure and collapsing business sector in Mearu. Senator Damien said these claims here are an absolute distraction once more from serious issues plaguing TNT under PNM governance. Every political entity will have issues internally, but Mrs. Prasad Bisasa was democratically elected as UNC's leader and has unanimous support in this regard. She has my full support. You know what this was? I think this was a preemptive strike. That's what I think this was. I think the main UNC core was actually worried about what was stirring up. Crime Stoppers boss does not need to warn Mrs. Prasad Bisasa on his television show. It is known that he has contacts inside of the UNC. He was a candidate for them in an election. If he wants to get some information to Mrs. Prasad Bisasa, he doesn't need to do it on his show. By him talking about this story on his show, he made it into a national news story, throwing it into the national news cycle. And now, you see, for the coup planners, part of planning for the coup may need some secrecy. Because you would need to go to people and ask them, theoretically, you know, if I do X, would you be on my side? But now, if you have Guardian media going around to every senator and every member of parliament and asking them, sticking a mic in their face and asking, okay, who are you loyal to? Are you loyal to Mrs. Prasad Bisasa? Well, now you can't do that behind their backs anymore. But they need to be careful with one of the alleged conspirators. That person is dangerous. You know, Anika Nicole, that's not a program I watch. I don't know who he even hinted at. I don't know anyone who might be dangerous or not. I don't know. So I don't know who the conspirators might be. But for me, nearly everybody in politics really dangerous when you think about it. Eh? Always remember they murdered the country's top prosecutor in the capital city. Always remember that when you're thinking about how dangerous politics, etc. is. UNC Senator Wade Mack did not respond. MP Dinesh Rambali said he had no clue about the claims, nor did MP Rodney Charles. Meanwhile, former UNC MP Ramona Ramdial felt red herrings from senior party members could be from Prasad Bisasa herself, seeking to ascertain who wants to challenge her in UNC's 2024 internals. But those who wish to challenge her will only show their hand when the election is called. Sticking with politics, the Prime Minister was over in Tobago talking politics recently about the UNC. PM claims Farley deal with UNC warns Tobagonians democracy under threat. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has warned Tobagonians that their democracy is under threat, as he claims the Tobago People's Party, led by Chief Secretary Farley Augustine, has promised the Tobago West and East seats to the opposition in the 2025 general election. Dr. Rowley alleged that the agreement is being made as Augustine seeks to establish seeks the establishment of a Tobago legislature through the United National Congress. He made the claim at a PNM meeting in Mason Hall on Sunday night. To back his claim, the Prime Minister cited a proposal Augustine sent to all parliamentarians 2 years ago during the debate of the Constitution Amendment Bill 2021 and Tobago Island Government Bill 2021. The document was also signed by Ho Choi Charles. In the letter, Augustine requested the creation of a bicameral structure, which was recommended to provide for 2 separate assemblies. In the first of the 2 chambers, 15 assembly members, 4 councillors, a presiding officer, and a president were to be elected. In the second, the chief secretary would be elected from a national vote. He or she would select the members of the executive council, except the deputy chief secretary, from outside of the other elected members of the assembly. The proposal also saw a request for 8% of the annual national budget and the establishment of the Tobago Service Commission to manage the public sector. PNM needs those 2 seats to form the government. They are scared as at the moment. Yeah, PNM does need those 2 seats. But it's a very difficult win for the UNC. And that's why PNM's technique is nearly always the same. It's the UNC trying to use this party. Because generally Tobago is not going to vote for UNC. There are many Tobagonians who dislike PNM. Many who hate PNM. But I believe there are much fewer who like UNC. So therein is the problem for the UNC. And for anyone who attempts to take those 2 seats, if you look like you're leaning towards UNC, it's an easy attack to make. Fali is very ambitious with that letter. Yes, he is. I was waiting for someone to actually soak in what the letter was suggesting. Were you all hearing what this letter was suggesting? He wants to make a 2-house bicameral parliament. 1 house is elected. The second one, the chief secretary basically chooses everybody. In the letter, Augustine requested the creation of a bicameral structure. Bicameral meaning 2 houses, bicameral structure, which was recommended to provide for 2 separate assemblies. In the first of the 2-chamber system, 15 assembly members, 4 councillors, a presiding officer, and a president were to be elected. So these are voted in by the people. In the second chamber, the chief secretary would be elected from a national vote. He or she would select the members of the executive council, except the deputy chief secretary, from outside the other elected members of the assembly. So basically, the entire other chamber is selected and controlled by the chief secretary. Personally, I believe what he's attempting to do there by creating a system like that is create a prime ministership in Tobago. So he's trying to do what prime ministers are basically allowed to do. He's basically trying to do, okay, the prime minister, you have an MP chamber, a member of parliament chamber, the lower house, where the MPs go. But then the prime minister gets to select his cabinet. The minister of this, the minister of that, the minister of the other are people the prime minister could choose them from anywhere. But it isn't pure upper and lower house style. It isn't pure upper and lower house style because in Trinidad and Tobago, the upper house is the Senate. And that Senate is selected not only by the government, but also partially by the opposition and also partially by the president. He is looking for basically a cabinet. He's trying to get them to legally cut out a cabinet for him inside of the parliamentary system. So he'd be able to select a full cabinet of executives outside of members that were voted for. Nothing wrong with him having power of PM though. No, 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 no. Something is wrong with him having power of PM. There could only be one prime minister in one country. Trinidad and Tobago is one country. You cannot have two prime ministers. Well, I don't think it would be wise to have two prime ministers. If you want to be a governor, that makes more sense to me. But that kind of Scotland Britain business, I don't think that works here. That's not the direction I think we want to go in. And yes, it is my view. That's what I talk about on this program, my view on the news. And it would be interesting to see if Tobagonians want him as the Prime Minister of Tobago. If that's the direction they're looking for. I wish to give him his power. What do you mean his power? How does he have any power? Who owes him that power? A Senante, you mean a Senate, needs to be gotten rid of in TNT. Okay, if that's what you want. The power for Tobago. You know, here's the thing, I always think, and I don't know if you're a new Tobagonian to my program. I used to have a Tobago Day on the same day, and we threw that away because I found a lot of foolishness from that. But something I notice with some of this, it's like why personalize it to him? Because he was the one who requested it. He was the one who wanted it. And all that he said was not in the original bills, because that's not the bill that the PNM wrote up. That's not the bill that the PNM wrote up. That was not the amendment to create a prime ministership in Tobago. That was not in the amendment. Yes, I believe giving them more leverage might be okay, but not that level. And here's the thing though. I find, and we spoke about this many times before, I think what Tobago is requesting there, if they get a group in Trinidad willing to do it for them, would actually make Tobago suffer. It would actually make Tobago suffer. So why not that level? Let's go back to this. I've spoken about this ad nauseum. Tobago makes profit $200 million. Tobago spends, or wants to spend, $4 billion. Tobago isn't run in a manner of an autonomous country. Tobago is run in a manner of a ward. Yes, bicameral just means two chambers, but the purpose of the two chambers are different. Tobago isn't run as an autonomous country. And the problem I have with a lot of the autonomy is what they're requesting isn't really more autonomy in totality. It's we want more power to spend more money out of the national coffers. ESO Autotech, no, that's not why. The reason why is because Tobago, the biggest employers in Tobago is the THA. And when the TPP came into power, they spoke about this being a problem, and what they did was expanded the employment of the THA. That's the problem. The problem isn't that the big businesses in Tobago pay taxes to Trinidad. Tobago doesn't make the money. And what they want is they don't want, here's what, cut us off of the teeth. Don't give us free stuff. We will generate income and use it. If Tobago wants that, here's what. We're going to pull off from Trinidad a little bit. We want a little more autonomy, but we're going to, the taxes that we'll spend extra is money that we will generate. So here's what. We'll keep our $200,000 taxes that we generate. 200 million, sorry, taxes that we generate, and we'll spend that, and we'll survive on this. Will Tobago be willing to do that? You get your prime minister, but understand that this THA that employs that employs 3/4 of the workforce in Tobago and pays them for doing inefficient jobs. Understand all of that is going to cut out. If a line is drawn between Trinidad and Tobago, then most of the deporter bids would be cancelled. Well, we've spoken about that many times. The idea about the oil is one trick. The idea about the oil is one big trick. Like somehow Tobago is going to get oil. No. You're going to lose the oil and you're going to lose your flying fish because your borders will get smaller. And good luck fighting Barbados on your own for the flying fish. Good night, Ronnie.
To Trinidad. So those businesses are Trinidad. So the businesses Trinidad. And if not Trinidad, some German, some English person. So they pay taxes to is relevant. Apart from the taxing, one thing I would love to be and Trinidad, but I would love Trinidad to do it too. Tourism than oil. I know but tourism makes more money.
Okay, so Rani, why it is Tahiti don't look like Dubai? Why it is Tahiti don't have free everything like Dubai?
Which is a viable done by a lot of the people want to do tourism. It's kind of this kind of like catering to people kind of vibe. Like we don't do that. It's like a slave kind of vibe that happened to, right? But yeah, how much a tourist when they come in, they spend a lot of money. And anything about it, so it'll be money that goes to the people, says oil to the government. That's probably meant to like to make it sound like.
All right. Well, I understand that tourism inputs money directly into the population more than oil would, and I agree with that. And here's the problem, and this is my grouse with what Tobago keeps talking and asking about. If Tobago is asking for more autonomy, we want to make more decisions, but we want less money from things that are generated from the mainland Trinidad. We want to do it on our own. So we're going to increase our tourism, we're going to decrease the THA salary budget, and we're going to balance our books. Then I'll say, well, okay, they're looking to mean business over in Tobago. That makes sense. But then when you tell me we want to make more laws in Tobago, we want to control more of our interests, but we want 8% of the national budget while we input point zero something. What are you telling me? This is like imagine a household, father, mother, children in this household. And one of the children, as they come of age, they decide, well, I want to make decisions in and around this house. I want to decide how we do things, and they ain't working anyway. They want to start to build more projects around the home, and they demanding that the parents must pay more to do it. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. That's not how you get that request over. How are we to make more money when we ask for certain things we don't get? You don't you see, that's the problem there, Iso Autotech. From the time you say that, you don't understand what making money means. Everything that the Tobago government asks for, Tobago government's continuing ask for, is we must spend more money. And somehow, don't worry how we'll make money, we'll figure it out. So let's run the Caribbean Airlines like a Uber taxi between Trinidad and Tobago every half hour with half empty flights. And don't worry how we will make the money. It go make. Don't worry about that. That's nonsense. That's nonsense. We have the chief secretary saying, don't worry how we would make money. We have plans to make more money. But every time you get more money, you employ more staff to do more nothing. Iso Autotech says we're not asking for more money. You didn't listen to the article I just read, because on top of that bicameral system where the chief secretary gets to choose an entire chamber of the parliament, they're asking for 8% of the national budget. That's more money.
Saying not to be who has asked for that, that is actually true. I spoke to I went to a discussion that tourism had, and the question was direct, and not even to be said it's not feasible, and that was it. They didn't even try to see how it's feasible. So I'm asking for direct flights, and they get a direct flight. Direct. I don't know why they got not come right here. Because come right here, direct, right? And up with I'm sure, right? I don't know why the because John is not fighting to stay here.
Krimak, you're asking this question and you know the answer because we spoke about this so many times. Tobagonians, I'm warning y'all. You see people like this Krimak guy in the chat? He wants y'all to go. This is what so many Tobagonians don't understand. Krimak has his own other motives. But, like, they're talking about the UNC. People have a short-term memory. There were UNC members talking about the demographics of Trinidad and Tobago and how the demographics may change in their benefit if Tobago decides to go to Grenada. So let them go. Get rid of Tobago. And in their mind, for the selfish Trini who hates Tobagonians, they're thinking Tobago gone means a weight off the Trinidad purse. technically. And I find one of the disappointing things I find when I hear so much talk from Tobago and Tobagonians, it feels like the 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 losing side of so many Creole cultures, so many African cultures, so many global South cultures, where it seems like we're so gullible. Like we don't think about things. We don't think about economics and maths. We just think about magic. So where does the money come from? It doesn't matter. We don't have to balance the budget. We just have to employ all our friends and make sure that the people get a morning walk and make sure that they get a money, and they aren't doing anything to generate anything for the country. Tobago, in my opinion, has regressed in tourism because many people you don't get the feeling like they take this seriously anymore because they don't have to. Why do I have to take my tourism job seriously when I have a government work giving me a sure salary? I don't even have to make the Benny ball of the same quality anymore. The government salary fixed that. So I don't care if you buy the Benny ball. Don't like it now, whatever. That's the problem. And that's why I have a problem with the more autonomy. Because the more autonomy doesn't take on more responsibility. It feels like you want more goodies and less responsibility. And if we are to judge from the direction the Tobagonian governments have taken Tobago, giving more autonomy and more money is going to do more of the same. Tobago is rising. We're not asleep anymore. Rising in what way? Tobago is rising in what way? Explain that to me. And I am not a Tobago hater. I know some people might want to feel so. I'm not a Tobago hater, but explain that to me. How is Tobago rising? Did Tobago increase their income last year? Did Tobago increase their share of the GDP? Did Tobago have more businesses opening? Did salaries in the private sector increase? Did the tourism sector expand? Was there more private investment? Was there more foreign private investment? What area has risen? Don't tell me that the government spend money and open a building, because that's not rising. That's more of the same problem. Do you wake up and run immediately? No. But if I wake up, there would be some evidence I woke up. If I am rising, even if I'm rising slowly, there'd be some evidence I'm rising. What's the evidence of the rise?
Yeah, something that happened in Tobago. I mean, besides more, I don't know. Besides more, because they're rising and murder.
That's true. Tobago murders have risen. So explain to me, what is rising? And you see, this is the problem that I'm talking about with the global South, Creole, Caribbean, African style thinking, where we just go on narrative and what the politicians sell us, and it's like we don't think. You nearly want to give credence to the stereotypes of the stupid savages. Like, you can't you do the maths? Can't you do the economics? Can't you see that if you spend more than you make, you're losing? Can't you see that a government cannot employ a country out of poverty? The government gets money from taxes and then is seeking to employ everyone out of poverty. So where are they getting the money to employ everyone? You think rising is the THA employing more people? Here's something that may actually be better for Tobago is if the THA goes out and fires quarter of their staff. That might help Tobago greatly. But it wouldn't feel like it. Lenny Chris, my cousins live there and they told me nightlife is no more.
That's not Trinidad. Serious. So just because Trinidad have actual and people and me that they to be Trinidad is a thing with us and to be it just has things to do and people actually doing it. In Trinidad, it's really a hybrid, right? We hybrid to every single waterfall in Trinidad. And to be it probably have there's absolutely that destination that some and I'm Monday stress as a Thursday night. Not stop. They have tours. They have and I don't probably tourism want to do it. Just something I had at Tobago tourism talk thing. And get that just not want to do tourism. Because if they don't want to do it, if they're saying enough, then do it. But you can't say something that you want to do and you're not put any effort behind it.
Yeah. And to me, if we're talking international tourism, where Trinidad competes with Tobago is intranational tourism. So somebody has some money to spend, a Trini has some money to spend, and they might stay in Trinidad versus go to Tobago. That's the competition. But to me, anyone by and large coming to Trinidad and Tobago for tourism interests, go to Tobago too. It's not like Trinidad is cutting their Tobago trip short. Like I don't think that's a reasonable reality in the relationship between Trinidad that Trinidad cuts off tourism from Tobago with our interests. I just don't see that as being a thing. I think Tobago needs to push tourism more to the fore if that's what they want to do. Tobago needs to decide what direction they want to go in to make money and go in that direction. But you cannot make money. You cannot make money by the THA employing everybody. And you said creators like myself would say they're too wicked. Then you don't know creators like myself. I constantly request the public service be cut to a much smaller size. And the THA in Tobago is probably one of the places most symptomatic of that. I wouldn't doubt if you get some kind of efficiency organization, private organization, to go through the THA and trim it down to be an efficient institution and organization. It might be 3/4 plus of the staff might be sent to.
But just now, wait. This person saying if they could get it to be one, then the other person saying they sabotage in the airbridge and the sea bridge.
Who's sabotaging the airbridge and sea bridge?
Trinidad doing that.
Really?
Guys, and yeah, nobody's stopping them from there. There, it's open. Get a boat. And this person who keep getting and say, well, I want to see from this account, and you refuse to make up with the account, then you're not saying nothing at all. Because you could come there from or take a to anything and say where it is.
You see,
At the end, just on one
go ahead.
This time, if she had to, I think it was like 13 people to London. Yeah. It was given on that trip. And it was 4 days long, 13 days given. Back in London again for travel is something. Was given for last year. It's added this year. Thing last year. In London again this year. How much times to be on last day what a child was when it was lacking green. Said absolutely nothing. It was just, and they said that, and that was the at least. And there is everywhere after the last report, right? You know, some man are looking hard enough, right? It's no report, added up nothing. So tell me, is it real work and all that to promote to be, and they come empty-handed every single time. From back since child, empty-handed. Something.
I hear you. I hear you. And so Willie Ben was asking, how does Trinidad earn revenue at the moment? Bear in mind, Trinidad has a strong manufacturing sector also. Sunshine Snacks, Universal, Holidays, etc., etc. Trinidad, what's this? Charles Chocolate. What's the associated brands with all of those? Trinidad has manufacturing, and the manufacturing sector is actually growing in Trinidad and Tobago. It's actually growing. And there is still a strong industry. No, I am referring, someone asked about how Trinidad earns money. So I'm talking about that. How Trinidad earns its money. Tobago, that's another story. Someone said those types of commercial vessels are licensed at the Colonial Office in Trinidad. They're licensed there. Okay. What does licensing have to do with leasing? If they're licensed there, you could lease them and get them licensed. I don't think. Public manufacturing or those businesses are private owned. Honestly asking, I don't know who owns Bermuda. They're private. But private companies have to pay taxes. That's how the government makes their money. The private company pays taxes off their profits. When they pay their workers a certain salary, the workers pay taxes off their profits. When the workers get that salary and spend the money, they pay taxes on the goods that they spend too. So that private company earns the country money. That's the best thing to earn. That is what Tobago needs. Tobago needs Sunshine and Universal in the tourism form. They need large companies there that don't need the THA to give them money, but that give the THA money. If everything in Tobago needs to get money from the THA, and bear in mind, think about it. Pause and think about it for a moment. If we are living in a joint country, one country, Trinidad and Tobago, but on this island of Tobago, nearly everything is the THA giving money, and the THA doesn't collect as much as they give. Where do you think the extra money that they're giving comes from? The next island? And then if you attempt to stir up some kind of friction between the islands, while at the same time asking for more money to spend, how do you want that to work? THA is the biggest goose gang, oh Lord. Nope, most leasing companies ask for the transportation licenses to move ahead with the lease. Okay, you're in Trinidad and Tobago. Do you think you cannot get the license? It's impossible to get. You don't know the directions to get to Trinidad to get the licensing. Like, if the reasoning you're saying that Tobago doesn't lease a boat is because they can't get to Trinidad to get a license, I call refuse. Cow refuse. In fact, male cow refuse. Well, yeah, I see tax as being the main rubric when it comes to national revenue for the government. Getting those types of licenses are very political. Well, here's the thing, Kirsch Sam. Here's the thing. I would take that much more seriously if they bring to me the political prosecution they faced in getting those licenses. So they show, okay, we were attempting to do this, that, the other, and look, Mrs. George didn't want to sign off on the license. Then you made news. But if you're telling me, well, the process is too political, so I'll never even start the process, you know? I won't even start doing it because we know it's too political and difficult. Really? People are supposed to buy that? Like, I'm not doing it because it's too difficult. But I'm not even starting. Something seems a bit strange with that. We have too much money not to do anything for ourselves. Honestly, don't think the country is doing better than years prior. Many sectors seem almost stagnant. We're still trying to get license to export rocks from our quarry. You're trying to get a license to individually export that quarry material. And an export license is something different than getting a license for a ferry. It's not the same thing. The export license business in Tobago has to do with the general politics of how Trinidad and Tobago is run and whether something should be exported from Trinidad through Trinidad or through Tobago directly. And you could understand why things like that make problems. So, okay, does Tobago get to sell things on the open international market on their own? Where does that money go? Where does that revenue go if Tobago sells something? Do they get to keep it all on their own or do they send it to the national coffers? And okay, if they get to keep that revenue, can that be held as a balance against the amount that the subvention that has to be sent for Tobago every year for their budget? Can it be said that, okay, if you all sell 10 million in quarry material, you get 10 million less in the budget? There are technical things to see about in something like that. To make it seem like it's just straightforward bad mind is a bit dishonest. There are other matters in this. And that's still something different from the ferry. And if we're being honest, I'm going very long on the ferry. You're giving a vivid description of colonialism. So you're trying to say that Tobago is a colony of Trinidad? That's ridiculous. And then are you saying Chaguanas is a colony of Trinidad? Is San Fernando a colony of Trinidad? What about Pinal? Is Pinal a colony of Trinidad? Like, don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. Words have meanings. Tobago is not a colony of Trinidad.
This is why I have said time and time again, Trinidad and Tobago not agree. They need to go their separate ways.
And then Tobago will bust. Tobago will end up a Haiti part 2 in the Caribbean. They are already spending much more than they make. Tobago literally cannot go on its own. It is impossible mathematically. You make 200 million and spend billions.
This is Tobago maths. You figure it out. But, you know, it just split my head into my head. You know? When I try to have a conversation and all the answers are just, it seems very much riddle me this, riddle me that. Because you're trying to talk about something to me. Yes, Tobago is a ward of the state. That is true. You know something? I was wondering, I am traveling next week, right? And I didn't realize Grenada is not a single island, you know.
No.
It has islands attached to it. And it's not Grenada and this and that. It's Grenada.
They are Grenadines. The St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
No, I talk about Grenada.
I know, but the Grenadines are those breakup islands and Grenada has another one. Many Caribbean islands have other islands. So is Little Tobago a ward of Tobago?
Islands attached to it. And doing big fuss about the recognition and in a side by side. Not even any name. And they don't even thing. And they have a over there, and they can boat. And most of these boats through the Caribbean are private owned.
Kirsch Sam says we're sovereign people over here. What does sovereign mean? What do you think sovereign means? We are a sovereign people over here. What does that mean? When you say you're a sovereign people, what do you get from that meaning? We're sovereign people. What the understanding of that? Because sometimes we say things and we don't fully understand the meaning, like colony. No, I'm not calling out any. It's not on the basis of calling out somebody's vocabulary, you know. Literally trying to find out what you mean by that. You are a sovereign people. This that seems to be the basis upon which why you think that Trinidad is colonizing Tobago or Tobago is a colony of Trinidad. So I would like to know what exactly you mean when you say sovereign. What do you mean by that? You are a sovereign people. Are you going to answer?
I have found, in my experience, it's not that Trinidad have a superiority in that have as complex as short complex and it shines through the in my experience felt like with Trinidad feel the better and I've never some Trinidad that had to be not living in I've never met a Trinidad that show the fullest love and appreciation attached to attached to them. It's always to be it's always Trinidad so that's not true. Trinidadians appreciate having they love the to come to be and it's like every time I talk to be when I talk to like Trinidad, you know when secure and you watching somebody that just have nothing, say nothing, just watching them and like I want to be secure I can't.
All right, Kush Sam says, unique culturally, socially, environmentally, and politically in the eyes of God. All right. Unique culturally. So sovereign means that you're unique. First off, you are not unique politically. Tobago is not unique politically, so that's wrong. But you're saying sovereign means you're unique culturally, so environmental. Like, what do those words mean? Is okay, Piparo has the mud volcano. They're unique environmentally. They are the Americans down in deep south who originated from America, freed slaves, etc., or escaped slaves, no, freed, and they settled and they have a different culture, etc. So is a group of Americans down south sovereign people? Like, what does that mean? And in the eyes of God? Like, how God reaching this? How you putting God in this business? God came down and separated Tobagonians from Trinidad and told them you all are a unique people that should be a country. Yes, we had government before Trinidad, and the THA Act is one of a kind. Well, having government before Trinidad is unique historically, and everyone is unique historically. Having government before Trinidad doesn't really say anything either. Like, that's the history of the world. There are places that had governance and then they don't have it moves like that, but that's not what makes you sovereign. And the THA Act is one of a kind. Yes, that is one of a kind, but does the THA Act make you sovereign? What is it that makes you sovereign?
The amount of time it takes to come back, I think just Google it. Sorry.
You see, and the problem I have here is that the statement basically means nothing. And then you are basing a whole ideology, a whole movement of Tobago getting more autonomy and on something that means nothing. There's no bad foundation exactly, Morbi-san. I'll leave you guys to do the Googling. Don't blame me for your limits. Wow. So you use a word, you're unable to explain what you mean, and then attempt to shade the people asking you what you mean about it. Fine. But this is the problem I have very often. That's why I don't even do the Tobago Day anymore. We'll talk about Tobago as part of Trinidad and Tobago, because this kind of nonsense is nonsense to me. That's nonsense. If Tobago wants to go on its own, then behave like you want to go on your own. If Tobago wants to keep getting lots of goodies from Trinidad, well then bat in your crease and get you lots of goodies from Trinidad. I am cool with that. I am very okay with that. Living like a country, like one country. So we could generate most of the oil income from the oil rig off the southeastern coast, and most of the income coming from technically Mayaro waters. But if we need to do some infrastructural works in Trin City, well, so be it. I'm not offended by that. So why is it that's the problem I have oftentimes with it. It seems nearly greedy. It seems nearly covetous that we just want more, and we deserve to get more because we is we people. All is all your people, and we deserve more. Deserve more? Why? On what basis? And I have found, and many of the party loyalists to that party may disagree, but I've found that the TPP have aggravated that situation in Trinidad and Tobago. And I don't think it's a positive thing. I don't think it creates for better outcomes for Trinidad, and I don't think it creates for better outcomes for Tobago. It doesn't. Anyway, people, we looking to close. Anything to say there in closing, Ronnie?
It's nice. And I didn't realize this stuff, and I just thought you were just avoiding Tobago. Had so much things happening in Tobago. You could at least talk about the carnival. Carnival was great. I didn't take part, but carnival. Trinidadian. I found it sorry. Mr. Augustin had to say that is the big thing Tobago have. And I was reading these comments and I had to laugh. Somebody saying, I didn't know we had one in Chinese Britain. And it's true.
And that's offensive. That's offensive. Again, that's the thing that I don't like. I know my father is a Trini. He loves Tobago. My father doesn't care to go anywhere else in the listen. When I mean in the world, he is good with Tobago. Real Trinis are like that. They love their Tobago. They will go and spend every vacation and all the money in Tobago. But then you hear the political side of Tobago pushing a kind of division like that's not true. What? No. That's not how Trinidad and Tobago runs. We don't have that divisiveness. A Trini is a Tobagonian, a Tobagonian is a Trini. We are the prime minister of the country is a Tobagonian. Like, what are we doing with this? What's that? And this last party, they stir it up. They stir it up a lot. And people need to understand politicians do that to get power. They want to bring you into their... They stir you up, get you angry, tell you that is the enemy. Look the enemy. The reason they want that is to get you into their camp. Come on my side, because that's the enemy. You know, I am an enemy of your enemy, you know, so I'm your friend. Come right here, buddy, and keep voting for me. That's why we were fought over by 20 colonial powers, and Trinidad cannot do without us.
Somebody have to something that makes sense. Does Trinidad have its own currency? Yes, it does. Is it Trinidad and Tobago dollar with the drop in second teaspoon? Yeah, you should. And come over to Tobago. You know, come over to Tobago. We will welcome you same way. And Trinidad and Tobago. Here, yes. If I were you, I would just
The man say that's why we were fought over by 20 colonial powers and Trinidad cannot do it out us, yes? He gloating over the history, you know? And you see, you don't want to create discussions like that because you're going to end up in a discussion like that with a Trini and will say things that would hurt your feelings as a Tobagonian. Let's leave that there. Tobago is beautiful. We need to put aside this political mess and invest in Tobago. Amen to that. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been the Mindful Live. I am Nathan Springer. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained, and I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live tomorrow evening. Tomorrow is Thursday evening. Thursday is the Thursday Talks. You jump in and we're just talking. No direct topics per se. We're discussing the topics that come up in the live, or if you have something to say, you can join and talk. So I'll see you then. It's nice. Listen, Thursday has been nice. So jump in Thursday. Hit that like button, double tap the screen over on TikTok before I dive out. If you're looking at this on YouTube and you're still looking at this, drop a comment. Tell me what you think. I want to hear from you all, the viewers on YouTube. Tell me what you think about this whole thing. And I will see you guys again for the next one. Laters, would love to have a private convo with you. Well, message me. All my DMs are open and I respond to my DMs. So give me a message if you have something to say. Laters, people, I'm out. Peace. Bye.